Hello, welcome to Silver Lining for Learning, episode 245. And today we are with a great team from Adelaide, Australia. And they just went to a summer camp in Beijing, organized by YEE Education, but explored the theme of what's worth learning in the age of AI. And all the students, over 100, nearly 200 from Australia, from various cities in China, engaged in a week-long exploration with AI, with mentors, with teachers. There's a lot of innovations, and we're very fortunate to have today Michael Jacobson and Sam and three students, Anika, Shayanne, and Ari, to come to reflect on this camp with us. And I must say that today the show is co-hosted by Professor Chris Didi of Harvard University, Professor Punya Mishra of Arizona State University, Professor Kurt Bunk from University of Indiana, Bloomington, and I am Yong Zhao. I'm from the University of Kansas, and I must admit I was involved in designing and supporting the summer camp in Beijing as well, and I was there for all week. So
now you missed Lydia Cow from the
oh,
University
it's
of Toronto.
Lydia. Oh, I'm sorry, Lydia. Sorry, that's why I said the flawed jade. But I'm sorry about that. Okay. So we have also Professor Lydia Tao from University of Toronto. Sorry about that. And now the summer camp was a week long, and today we have two teachers, Michael and Sam, and three students, as I was mentioning, Anika, Ari, and Shayanne. So what we will do is to start by maybe ask Michael and Sam and each of the students to do a brief introduction of yourself and a very, very quick reflection of your experience of the camp, and then we'll dive into questions with the five hosts. How's that? Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Michael Jacobson. So I have been together teaching with Sam, my colleague, in the HIP program with Year Education for 3 years now. I teach business innovation and economics to senior high school students, to essentially year 10, 11, and 12 students, which is your last 3 years of high school in Australia. And we've been working together cross curriculum, society and culture students and business innovation students working together in groups, identifying societal pain points that the students have identified, and then they coming up with their solution to go through and help a certain group of people overcome that pain point, and with a view to helping that maybe at a grassroots level then spread out to other parts of society and make things better for them. The summer camp in Beijing this year was actually the second one for myself and Sam to attend, and it was a follow-up to Chongqing. And it took our work with AI and what were we thinking that we can learn with AI to another level. And so we really this year was focusing in a lot of our junior international coaches making a big contribution in the classroom, our local grad student Chinese coaches making a big contribution together with our year 7. So we learn a lot more about how can we consider the affordances and the constraints of AI in our learning.
Great, thanks, Michael. Sam, go ahead.
Just on mute, there we go. Yeah, I think so. Michael sort of covered it all there. I think the thing that we really took away from the camp this year in terms of I guess the experience with working with Yi and the Human Interdependency Project was its development from Chongqing last year. It was certainly last year we certainly used AI, and it was exciting for the first time I guess have AI as a teacher and not be sitting there kind of wagging your finger and telling people they shouldn't use it and it was going to make you, like affect your work. I think really the guiding sort of principle of Beijing as opposed to sort of Chongqing was kind of like, yes, let's accept AI, whereas in Beijing now it was like a real kind of like an exponential leap into what AI can do for not just schools or education in general, but for you as a person. So the individuals that we brought to Beijing, three year 10s and 3 year 11s who you see here. Yes, they produced these fantastic just projects that were really sort of centered around improving education. But this is the main answer to Zhao, your question is what's worth learning in the AI was what can you learn about yourself and how can you learn about yourself? That really kind of shone light for me personally about how to start sort of thinking about new education in this age where we've just got the work is essentially done. What's left to do? And I think the students have really they'll sort of talk about their experiences, but what's really left to do is to learn about the self and what's your passion and who are you in relation to that.
And by the way, we are all too excited about the camp. That's like I neglected to introduce Lydia. Sam even didn't introduce himself. Sam is Sam Franzway, also co-teacher at USC, right? It's the University Senior College affiliated with the University of Adelaide, right? That's all right. So
well, Adelaide University now next year.
Okay. So Anika, can you do a short introduction and your reflection of the camp?
Hi, my name is Anika. I'm a Year 11 student at University Senior College in Adelaide, South Australia. I went to the camp this year at Beijing, and I think something I really got out of it is that I admired how in the camp everyone is working with AI rather than against it. And I think here in Adelaide and in Australia, people need to bring that back here and work with it because working against it isn't going to help anyone because AI is going to be here forever. So we need to learn how we can improve ourselves with it.
Thank you, Anika. Shayanne, do you want to do the same?
Hi, my name's Shayanne. I'm currently a Year 11 student at USC. And something I took from the camp was, I think, with the uprising of AI in the modern world and learning how to work with it, I think I learned a lot about the importance of human interdependence, especially like working with the kids in China and seeing how they collaborate with it. I think that was a real testament to collaboration with AI instead of using it to cheat and work against our work and stuff like that. And what we can take from it and use it to create a better society instead of just use it to cheat or shorten work times and stuff like that.
Thank you, Shayanne. Ari.
Hi, I'm Ari. I'm a Year 11 student at USC, and I went on the trip to Beijing this year. And I think one of the major things that I took away from it was that the education system in China is so different to what's in Australia. And there's benefits and there's a lot of negatives as well. But especially with AI, we have to like learn what's actually catered towards the students and what actually benefits us and how we can move forward in education so that we can all take something away from it.
Great, thank you. So that's a brief reflection. So let me just introduce the camp a little bit. The camp was really designed with three basic principles. Number one is called personalized learning. We hope students will discover their strength, their interest, and follow their interest and strength to the second principle to find and solve problems for others. And the third one is to develop a sense of human interdependence to move away from meritocracy that you compete with others using the same in the same domain, but you would discover your unique strength, solve problems for others, and use AI to cultivate a sense of human interdependence among ourselves and, of course, across nations. So that's the general design, but all throughout the way, they used a tool. It's called YEE AI, which really bundles with a lot of large language models, and the students were free to use. But again, yeah, since we had technical issues, technical challenges, we had a lot of social challenges, all of them are worth learning. And so Punya has a question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Zhao. I think you have sort of partially answered sort of the question of the overall goal of the camp. So maybe Michael, Sam, you can fill in a little bit about how it was structured, as in like, was it all day, sort of just the logistical elements of how it played out. And I would really be curious to hear from the three of our students here about those points that Zhao raised, how did they connect with you? Did you seem to engage with the technology in ways that helped you identify things that you were interested in? And how did that sort of overall camp, there's something special about going away from home, being in a camp, which is more than, just the learning part of it. And I'd be curious to understand that part as well. So I will have Michael, you and Sam sort of start off with the logistics so that we and the listeners can get a flavor of what it was like being there. And then I would love to hear from the students about their nature of their experience in the camp.
Okay, well, just to start off, we all lived in dormitories. We lived in dormitory rooms with, the people who were on the camp. We ate our breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the school cafeteria every day together, which was, I think it's a great way to bring everyone together and unify. And you got everyone saying good morning to each other and getting through the day getting through each day fully nourished as well. We needed our food because the school day began pretty much at about 9 o'clock, and we would have a 2 to 3 hours in the morning, 2 to 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon, and then also activities after dinner. Where the girls come through and say, "Oh yes, the school system is very different in China. It starts about the same time as what we do at USC, but it finishes a lot later." And so the teaching model, everybody had their camper journal with the content, but the daily content and the content for the week was all mapped out really well for us. It was all bilingual. It was in Mandarin and in English. So therefore, those of us who travel from Australia who don't have any Chinese skills really at all, we were fully included. And the teaching was vastly done by the local graduate Chinese students, 6 to each home base. There was 2 or 3 junior international coaches from Australia in each of those classrooms, and also one of the international coaches, which was Sam and I. So we were basically last year front and center doing a lot of the teaching work in English, and we had our teaching assistants going through and doing a lot of translation for us. But this year we really took a much more of a back seat, and the other 9 people in the room did a lot of teaching, or all of the teaching and the facilitation with the 30-year 7 local Chinese kids who were there on the camp as well, all living on campus with us. So that's sort of the setup. Sam, do you want to go on and talk a bit more about that? Because I've had enough.
Yeah, look, we were there for kind of like a special week, and as I understood it, I think that was the first week of schooling, a bit of a special kind of, here's what this level of education is like for these new Chinese students they've all come to the campus, they're all moved in. As Michael said, we're all in there living together, and across the week, it was a week-long program of essentially, like Zhao said, you're identifying a problem and looking at how you personally would solve it, how you would work in a group to solve, prototype, and iterate. And the fascinating thing for me, and the students might have something different to say, but I think it was the different speed with which every student and every even classroom moved. Sometimes we would sit there and the students would be just kind of what essentially looked like sort of playing or arguing, or they're on their iPads a little bit, but it was kind of like a progress. But because it was understood to be stretched out over a week, you really had to, as myself as a teacher, had to kind of resist the urge to kind of run at the front and go like, you do this and you do that, and actually kind of relax that grip to watch these students, who some of whom I don't think had ever worked at that intensity before, the Chinese and my Australian students as well, and watch them sort of, I guess, become themselves and solve their own problems and see what they were running into. And my experience as kind of being the sort of Australian teacher, I ended up being a student quite a lot, sitting with groups and hearing what they had to say, yes, through the translator app, which was again its own sort of year hip style interdependent learning process. And at the end of the week, it sort of culminated in like a demonstration festival of all these solutions. These kids, at the beginning of the week, we asked them, what's your problem? And they thought bubble, you know, I like to draw, or I don't like, I don't like how hard the beds are. And then suddenly they're designing these, like physical, real wireframe solutions that you look at and go, I would. I would buy this. This is an amazing solution. After literally just a week of what seemed to be quite a free form learning environment, which I think was probably that's what might have thrown the local children. I really admired how the Australian students, the ones that we picked, were just terrific, and you got three of them here. I'll let them include their own actual experiences of it. What do you think, Year 11s? What was your experience?
When you asked Punya about how we worked with the AI, I think what was really interesting to me was that this is the first time I've seen structure within AI, like how to actually use AI. People, it's very new, we don't know how to work with it, but the students were given how to work with it, or what's good about AI, what's not good about AI, how you can use it, how you shouldn't use it. And I think this really enabled the students to know what to do and not what to do. They weren't abusing it, they weren't cheating, they were using it to help them like improve their idea, like make it deeper. And I think that was really nice to see. I think something I really liked in the camp was that I learned how to communicate with a language barrier. I can't speak Chinese, but I learned how to communicate with them without words, you know. I could speak with my hands, with objects, you know, hand gestures, like yes. And I think that was really like a new experience, and I really liked that I took that out of the camp.
Thank you. Shayanne?
Yeah, so in terms of like structure and what we did over there as year 11s, we basically we got the opportunity to learn with them, teach them, and also play with them. So there would be times throughout the day where we would host reflection sessions, and we would teach them and play games with them to keep them engaged and off their iPads and make it fun and interactive for them because it was a summer camp. But there were also times where we were doing learning sessions with them. We would share our ideas, discuss as a table. And as Anika mentioned, there was a language barrier, but we worked through that and we found ways to collaborate with them despite the language barrier. And I think it was a really good opportunity because we got to learn with them, play with them, and also just, interact with them in a way that we haven't before.
Ari?
The kids that we worked with, they were quite young. I think they were about 12, 13 years old. And so going into it, it was kind of, I know that personally I expected them to be quite nervous and shy, especially with that language barrier, and also not keen on working. But they were all super eager. I mean, they were shy at first, but they wanted to get to know everyone. They were really kind. They were helpful as well. Like sometimes I was the coach, but sometimes they were helping me. And seeing how they worked with AI so responsibly and worked with each other, especially when they didn't know each other, it was very eye-opening. And I think that we can probably learn a lot. And like being more dependent on students and understanding that they actually understand their learning needs and that they can be responsible for themselves.
That's a really, thank you, all of you, for sharing that. And Ari, that's a really wise way to, I think, sum up what one of the themes I think that will be there. I had mentioned this is completely aside, but I'd mentioned this last week in the last episode that I'm teaching a master's doctoral seminar in which I have 4 high school students, and they're easily the most engaged 4 in my class. And, it is so awesome to have them there, the energy that they bring, just, it is just phenomenal. And so I'm so pleased to learn that you guys had this experience, and I think it's wonderful. I know Lydia is waiting patiently, so I will pass the baton to her.
Thank you, Punya. This all sounds super exciting. I know one of the theme for this camp is what is worth learning in the age of AI. So rather than the teachers telling you what's worth learning, and I think the camp evolve around you answering this question through this experience. So I'm just wondering what you think is worth learning in the age of AI now after this camp experience, and what you think is no longer worth learning. And I'll throw that at the students first. Anika, maybe we can let Ari go first because we always let Anika go first. So
we spoke a lot with the teachers and also just from what we saw with the students. And I know that we personally did another podcast with Dr. Zhao and Michael and Sam. And it was eye-opening to just see like even teachers' point of views of what they wanted to learn. But I think we all came to the conclusion that AI can be used as a tool to assist people. It shouldn't be there to rewrite or do our assignments, but there should be a restructuring. Like a lot of the assignments that we do now have been the same assignments that have been taught for years and years and years, and they haven't been updated, especially with all this new technology coming out. So it's hard to answer because it's still an unsure like area. But I think that there needs to be someone that looks at what's actually worth learning.
Yeah, I think as Ari was saying, AI being an issue in assignments speaks a lot about the fact that our current education system aims to produce students as robots to regurgitate information instead of working with them to collaborate and create new things and, discover new things about themselves and their unique passions and strengths and individual personalities. And I think that using AI to further our learning could free students from just like the same memorization and regurgitating information and the same type of assignments that we're used to that doesn't really teach us anything. And, we can use AI to better like create a society where people are passionate about what they do and interested in what they're learning. And because I think that, like as Punya was saying, a lot of the students in this course may not be engaged with what they're doing, but the high schoolers who are there, they want to be there. And I think that that is obvious through their passion and their engagement throughout their courses.
Like I agree with everything they were saying, but I also feel like what's weren't learning in the age of AI is genuinely learning to use AI because it's new. Like we don't know how to use it, and I think getting a program like the camp we went to where students are learning how to use AI can really help them develop their passion for their like lives, what they're interested in. It can help them narrow what fields they are interested in, and then they can help, deepen that interest. And I think that it's really not done in Australia or Adelaide at least, and I think that needs to be done so students can have a better education.
thank you so much for this really, really thoughtful and insightful reflection.
Chris, go ahead.
Sure. So there's a long history in ed tech of studies of what you learn by teaching the technology something. Professor Daniel Schwartz, now at Stanford, but a couple decades ago at Vanderbilt University, came up with the protege effect, where if you have a digital person, not necessarily an AI, but something that mimics a person in some ways, you'll put more effort into helping them learn than you actually would put into helping yourself learn. It says something about how human beings are wired. You as students probably don't remember, but those of us who are older may remember Tamagotchis, little digital babies that you had that were incredibly a nuisance, but nonetheless, people would get really into feeding and caring for their little digital babies, even though they didn't remotely resemble any kind of a real baby. And it is scary, in fact, that with Gen AI, we can produce things that potentially could produce much stronger effects of caring because they are good at simulating human characteristics. And beyond motivation, one of the things that people constantly report, if you're building a computer program, or if you're building a doghouse, or if you're building a symphony, or if you're building some kind of an artifact, you learn an incredible amount in the building. The devil truly is in the details. And you understand something much better when you're done with it than beforehand. So I think about taking AI and having students able to train it. You have to have a special kind of an interface for that, and it would probably need to be some kind of a malleable small language model. And I think a number of interesting things might happen from that. One, people might be highly motivated to do so because of the protege effect. Two, they would learn a lot. And three, by what they could train the AI to do and what they couldn't train the AI to do, no matter how hard they've tried and how long they worked, there would be kind of an empirical answer to the question about what's worth knowing in the age of AI, which is what's worth knowing is what you can't get the AI to do yourself. So I don't know if there was anything like that at the summer camp. I understand that there were activities where AI was used as a tool. I want you to help me find an article, or I want you to help me, do a PowerPoint or produce this artifact as a kind of a co-producer. But were there anything that was closer to what I'm describing in terms of AI as the 2T, the thing that's learning, as opposed to the tutor or the collaborator?
Chris, early in the week, the first couple of days on the camp was the structure of the days was about the students learning how to learn about themselves more, about what they're identifying. When are they at their most creative, and when do they prefer working in groups, and what are their strengths with problem solving, and when do they find it difficult to learn, and when do they find it easy to learn and better to learn. And so that couple of days of really learning about self, and then also as a bit of a, and then the next part was then moving through and looking at, well, as you just identified, what can't AI do for me? What can't it help me with? And that's where I come in. That's where I bring in my strengths and my passions and my creativity and the way that I would like to learn. And so yes, there was some of that in the camp, and it was awesome. It was such a great way to do some of that reflection and self and personalized investigation before we began to go in and use AI and solve our problems. And the problems that the students were going through and solving were identified by themselves. See, last year in Chongqing, we had an overarching one project that everybody worked towards. This year, it was more individualized and more personalized. So that was when it really began to get actually super interesting. Sam, maybe you could chime in as well, because everything was different at every different table. There was different tables all working on different problems and solving different things. It was really, it was so dynamic. And also, what I would also like to add is that with our three students, I mean, actually, Ari and Shayanne and Anika were in the room with me in the classroom that I was located in, home base 4, and we had our 6 teaching assistants, or our learning coaches was a bit of a new word that we sort of began to bandy around. They were also learning how to work bilingually and cross-culturally and with AI. It was, I could have done another week. That's enough from me. So.
Look, I'll chime in and give the annoying sort of the inverse answer. I think the thing that was really kind of valuable about the camp was I think the same thing that's valuable about kind of every learning experience that you end up having, and that's the incidental kind of magic that happens. I know that I myself, but I observed it throughout the camp. I had these, incidental but extremely valuable conversations with pretty much every single person who could speak English. Sort of all the teachers who came, every single one of the students, the 3 you see here, and the year 10s that we brought as well. And in that in that learning environment of, yes, it's a classroom and we're working towards a project along a week, but it's in those little liminal spaces, the little sort of areas of, of boredom between the tables where, myself and my students ended up kind of, you sort of go up to the table and go, hey, what's going on here? It doesn't look like learning or whatever you're doing. And you would end up suddenly falling into this student's actual sort of process of learning. What looked like some sketching or scribbling or mucking around, they were actually working something out. And that experience of being on the learning camp spilled out into the corridors and into the lunch rooms and into our little kind of, our sort of student rest zones where everyone here knows this experience of going like, whoa, that was a big lesson. How was that? And then suddenly 15 minutes later, you're very deep into an extremely valuable learning conversation. I've had one with each of the students here, just incidentally on camp while we're kind of having a sort of sip of water. And we even ended up recording, sort of doing it with a couple of the teachers, one of the teachers from Pulteney and with Trina Emler as well. We just ended up, sort of saying, yes, how was that? And what do you think? And about 10 minutes in, I was going, what are we doing? We need to be recording this as a podcast. Like, I don't want to let this extremely sort of valuable learning go. And if you kind of look at it in an environment that's very kind of, really wonderfully designed as this beautiful sort of summer learning camp, it's the bits that you can't plan for that often sort of, bear the richest fruit, those bits around the edges where it does sort of pop up, and that integration that does sort of happen. I think in what's worth learning in the age of AI is how to spot those non-planables, that sort of capability driven stuff.
Well, I really like what both of you have said, and I think that's the coming away with more of a knowledge about yourself is perhaps the single most important thing that can happen at something like a summer camp, where you're put in a cross-cultural situation where the strange, you have to make the strange familiar, and the familiar becomes strange, and you're just trying to sort it all out. If I wanted to toss it to Kurt, but I like metaphors and analogies, and the Aladdin's lamp analogy with AI is an interesting one. AI is sort of like the genie that comes and says, what would you like to be better at? You can have 3 wishes. What would you like to be better at? And I will grant you that capability. And what a person answers as their 3 wishes is enormously diagnostic about them, I think, in very interesting ways. And of course, then some of the time, it turns out the genie can deliver. And some of the time, it turns out that the genie is sort of a fraud in making that offer. And gets into, again, the issue of what's worth learning in the age of AI. Kurt.
Just a little bit, Kurt, before you do that, I think what Chris comments and questions raised of something I just want to add, because we've been running the camp for 7 years now. We always, other than the COVID time, we've always brought students and teachers from other countries. I must congratulate all this, Sam, Michael, and Shayanne, Anika, and Ari. You guys really met the challenge. So, like when Chris is talking about, you kind of tame, you teach AI, you control this, because they were thrown into really completely foreign, messy, unfamiliar situations, culturally, linguistically. And because I always believe people can do that. No matter where you are, if you give them the motivation, you can handle it. And these guys dealt with the challenges are not only from daily interactions, even like food. Going to the bathroom can be a very different experiences, right? Sleeping in the bed, crowded. It's just it is a whole experience. And we have students from the UK, from the US. It's really interesting. Now add another layer of AI. It's in essence, they have to train, you have to co-evolve with AI. So this is, so you guys did great. Thank you. Now Kurt can do that. I just want to make sure I want to thank these people because they did very well,
Well, I maybe shouldn't go next because Shayanne and Anika and Ari had a chance to think about Chris's question. Did you, any of you have anything to add before I ask my question?
Yeah, I think instead of using AI as a tool, as Chris was saying, I think that we learned, working with the kids in China, we learned that the value of AI lies in how we use it alongside human strengths, like with empathy, critical thinking, collaboration, and imagination, because those are the areas in which AI can't replace humans. And those are the areas in which we should be focusing to expand on our pursuit for knowledge. And I think Sam was saying on the camp when we were talking to him that the pursuit for knowledge should be a lifelong journey that humans are actively seeking and looking to go on, because learning should never there should never be an end to it. It should be always learning how to grow, how to change, how to expand on ideas. And I think that was something that I found really valuable, and that was a key takeaway for me. Just also seeing how teachers coming into this new age can learn how to teach in a way that isn't just producing information spinning students, but instead of like allowing them to grow in a space that we are unfamiliar with, and to foster and nurture individuals who are learning in a new way that we're unfamiliar to.
Ari or Anika, or I'll just go ahead and ask my question. Okay, so first off, I was in Beijing in mid-August. I thought I was in a fantastic forum at Beijing Normal. It was one of the, as I told people last week, I told Chris and Young and Punya and Lydia, that was a top 10 experience of my life being in Beijing. But I think I missed out. I wasn't at your camp, So I want to hear more. I want to get the links to it and read more about it and so forth. So I've got a two-part kind of question, and really just I'll ask the gentleman first and the ladies second, okay? So first off, Young and Michael, I'm really curious about Young. First off, you've got 4 articles listed in the blog post. 3 of them are from Review of Education, and 1 is from Ed Leadership. So I'm curious about why you included those articles in the blog post, because people are going to watch this episode and they're your articles. I want you to inspire them. Go ahead and read them. What do they tell us about creating effective learning environments today? And Michael, what I'm curious about in this blog post, they mention personalized learning, right? Young already mentioned that. Problem finding, problem solving, collaborative learning, and interpersonal skills, right? I'm wondering, authentic learning environments, meaningful learning environments. So I'm wondering if you guys are using a particular model from someone and can reference a learning environment scheme that I could go to look up the learning principles that you're embedding in the camp. Is there anyone that we would like to follow up on or learn about a little more? That's my question for the gentleman. Maybe I'll wait and for the question for the ladies, but basically it comes from Anika and what she had to say in the blog post about the digital learning spaces that we're in today, AI spaces, requires patience, creativity, and adaptability. And I want you to comment on that, Anika. I want also Shayanne and Ari to comment on, and what's missing from that quote. So we'll come back to that. I'll ask it again. But first off, Young, why did you include those articles in the blog post?
Well,
Why should we read them?
those answers your question. You are looking for the person who created the theory, the whole learning framework. That's me.
Yeah,
So those 4
it's you.
articles, and
It's you.
yeah, I have several books on this. I mean, so the whole program, you can, I've written a lot of since 2012 on entrepreneurship, creativity. Then I wrote books on personalizable education. Then recently we talk about how educational changes. So we call the whole program ICEE, Innovation, Creativity, Entrepreneurship Education. But
Okay.
really 3 principles, like I mentioned: personalized learning, and finding solving problems for others, all that matters, and building human interdependence. And we have another program globally in many countries, like schools, they run is called HIP, Human Interdependence Projects. So those 4 articles, there are many more articles and books lays out how we approach this and how we are trying to change the paradigm and how AI is being used. And by the way, Michael and Sam and Ari, you guys, the blog post Kurt is talking about is the silver lining for learning blog post. And there's a lot more articles that we have written, and there's a lot more writing that we've done. So these are some of the articles people can get a sense of what we are trying to do. And Michael and Sam, if you remember, came last year, and they've been trying the HIP projects at USC, and their school principal went to Beijing this time. I heard she wants to expand that program to more students. You guys, Michael, Sam, you can talk more about that.
Well, the thing is, Kurt, no, there is no real model that we've gone through and done research about. How it came about was that once we had received an email from the Independent Association of Independent Schools in South Australia introducing the Human Interdependence Project, we sort of sussed things out. We thought, if we were to work together across our 2 subject areas and across 2 year levels, how could we put together a program that would encompass these things? Because we both were reading through the memo, so to speak, about the Human Interdependence Project, and it made real sense to us. We thought, wow, we could bring our 2 subjects together, and then we went through and did our curriculum planning and program planning and performance standards and all that sort of stuff that you do when you're sort of creating a new subject, I suppose, which neither of us had ever done before, and it all just fell into place beautifully. And then once we had a chance to go through and talk to that and explain very briefly in about 5 minutes to a group of people at Pulteney Grammar School, which included Dr. Zhao and also June, they came over to us after we'd given our brief description of the program that we were designing, and they said, this sounds really great. You're embedding it into your school curriculum. It's not an add-on. This is going to be where you're doing this with your students in the classroom organically. And we said, that's what we hope happens. And now we're into our 5th semester of doing that. And it just gets better and better every semester. The students will always come through and say how they really enjoyed it, because we've really tried to focus upon what is important to them and how do they want to go through and present things and how do they want to go through and approach developing their solution. And every group that works, we might have between, say, 8 and 10 groups in each cohort each semester of our 2 classes together. They continually surprise us and blow us away by the things that they think are important and what we need to go through and identify as societal pain points that could be solved, and their solution that comes out of it. We're just guiding. We're just the learning coaches. We don't teach them lots and lots of content. It's just a process that we suggest, and then they take it, and we get to sit back and see how it all works. It's amazing. Sam?
Yeah, look, I'll just add on to that. On the subject that I started off teaching is called Society and Culture, and it's a great class to be part of. All we do is stand around and talk about what's happening in the news, pretty much, and then we sort of work in stuff about human rights and sort of protest and change. But always at the kernel of it is essentially what was already at the kernel of all the sort of the HIP sort of program and learning, and that's that interdependence. You need yourself, and then you need to realize that there's sort of others, and if we don't all work together, it's all going to go terribly. But so once we're sort of starting from that building point of let's look for our own strengths and look for the strengths in others. There's the limit is beyond global, and I think every single time that Michael and I sit down and we're deep in it this semester as well. We've just finished task 2, and the students are sitting around and they are looking out on the streets and at what they really sort of care about and see, and they are engaging all those very human skills that Shayanne was just talking about, sort of empathy and courage and creativity. And there's not, Michael and I don't stand up at a whiteboard and write those things down, putting the idea to the students that they, A, need to work together, and B, that they're important. and that their ideas and that their solutions are, are realizable through kind of a simple, it's like almost like a simplified structure of like basically looking up from the textbook and looking around. I think that's what's kind of made it so smooth the whole time. Like from that first email that Michael and I keep thinking, where was that email? How did we first come across this? But yeah, it was a lay down misere the whole time. We, because it's that kind of interdependence, and maybe it's the cross curricular nature. Like there's business with, sort of its structures and, sort of entrepreneurial, sort of solution based product based solutions, and then society and culture with kind of a reason to do it. I know Zhao will probably remember last semester when you and Jun just happened to visit the HIP classroom where the students are working on the whiteboards, and Anika had just kind of finished doing her sort of section of the whiteboard that her group was doing, and turned around and met Zhao, and we kind of went, here's Anika, this is Zhao and Anita, and was immediately able to just kind of give an enormous kind of fascinating, concise, passionate, interesting lecture. Sorry, Anika, I'm putting you on the spot here, but it was extremely impressive. But yeah, Michael's right. We didn't do anything. We just kind of gave the guidance and did the coaching and kind of pointed in various sort of directions. But it's the students themselves who are the ones taking away the talents. I mean, the product. You talk product-based learning. I think the product is maybe not the realization of abilities, but the realization that there are some within each of the people or each of the students who do start taking place. To echo Shayanne again, I think learning in the age of AI isn't learning facts. It's realizing abilities and kind of being able to sort of see and shape and stand on. Yeah.
Well said. And that's going to get my students in my R622 class in learning environment design thinking about how they are design their ideal learning environments, because that's what they have to do for final project. I'm going to send them this recording so that they can learn from all of you.
Wow.
But
good luck, team.
yeah, they'll watch this episode. I'm going to send this right away. Actually, tomorrow I have in my class as guests 2 people from previous episodes. But Anika, in the blog post, and I again don't want to put you on the spot. I want to ask this of Shayanne and Ari as well. But in there, it says the experience of teaching the children fostered a deep appreciation for educators' resilience and highlighted the importance of patience, creativity, and adaptability, which you recognized as especially important skills in the rapidly evolving age of AI. Your Anika is passionate about helping others, exploring new experiences and working outside your comfort zone. Your interest in neuropsychology is driven by a desire to understand the brain and use that knowledge to help people flourish. That word flourish is going to be alive and well in a couple of days when I present at a medical conference. That's the big word this year, apparently, is flourish. Anyhow, do Shayanne, Ari, or Anika want to talk about the patience, creativity, and adaptability skills that you need to flourish in an AI in education world? Are there things missing from that statement or things you want to add to it or comment on it?
Thank you. I think I said those skills because like you need the creativity to know what to ask AI, but you have to have an idea yourself, and you need the patience because AI is not always gonna know exactly what you want, and it's not gonna give you the right output all the time. And you need to be adaptable because we're in an age right now where we have to just work on with whatever's coming at us. And I think something that's probably missing is critical thinking. That AI, like you need to be able to question it. You need to have your own thinking skills to be saying, is this right? Or could it be better? And, correct it and make it better so it's smarter as well. And also emotional intelligence, because at the end of the day, AI it's like it's digital, it's not a human, it lacks the emotional aspect. And I think that's why AI can never take over the world because humans have the ability to understand emotions and know what to do in situations where emotion is needed. And so that's something that also is needed.
Wonderful. Ari, Shayanne?
I think in terms of creating an environment where students can flourish, we should be looking to create one where they collaborate instead of compete. I think the whole idea of a competition in school defeats the purpose of learning. I think especially in Australia or South Australia, our concept of ATAR is based on the fact that you do better than other people. And I think that, you know, growing and encouraging an environment where people are collaborating would increase people's ability to thrive in a world where it's interconnected and globalized. And I think that AI is often viewed as a threat, but it should be embraced as a transformative tool to encourage people's growth in their learning journey.
Ari, you get the last comment here.
Like Anika said, when using AI, it doesn't just come from nothing. You still have to have some sort of concept, some sort of idea that comes from yourself and your own passions and whatever. Um, but I think it's important to note that people, like it's human nature that people want to learn more, especially, and people have passions. They want to learn more, they want to engage in that. And if AI is just another tool to cut down time or make it easier or just find that information that's relevant, then I don't get why we should be inhibiting students from using that, you know? And what Shayanne said, like it's so competitive, but these grades, these numbers, this competition, it shouldn't be like who can do the best, who can do this, you know, how much can you know? It's just, you should just want to learn the topic. You should want to learn the knowledge and just find that for yourself.
We're going to move it over to Punya for a question now. Thank you all. That was great.
So
Just a little bit. I'm sending you a bunch of my webpage has about 6 articles, some of my most writings about AI and this whole program. So Punya, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, thank you, all three of you, for sharing that. I'm just curious, given Ari, what you said, actually, what all of you said, like, did you guys work on like specific projects that there were personal projects that you worked on? And if yes, I would love to learn more about what sort of questions or sort of inquiry that you did. And I know, I don't know, Michael, you or Sam, one of you mentioned that these projects were amazing. Then I'll come back to you at the end because I'm just looking at the time, but I'd love to hear from the students first about what your projects were and what was enriching or what, you know, how did that play out? And, you know, just, yeah, any of you can start off. I'll go with Cheyenne this time because you always are in the middle of that sequence. I'll start off with you.
Okay, well, in China on the summer camp, Anika and I were working on a project together called Pathway to Passion, where it's a subject that encourages students to find their passions and discover their identity instead of just learning information to discover who they are. So then when they graduate school, that they're going to be working on those strengths and unique individual personal strengths that create a society where people are passionate about what they do. And we acknowledge that one of the biggest challenges in education is that a lot of students, they just finish school without not really knowing who they are or what drives them. And I think that across China and Australia, something that I noticed with the students that are alike is that often the career choices that they choose are shaped by societal expectations or parental expectations and what's considered a good job or makes a good life instead of what drives them and creates an individual personalized life that contributes to their personal happiness. And I think that our subject was aimed to create people who are interested in what they're doing, like Ari was saying, that people should want to learn, and naturally they do, but our education system unfortunately doesn't encourage that sometimes. And I think that introducing a subject like this could reintroduce them to an idea of learning that we are unfamiliar with, unfortunately, but it could reintroduce the idea that learning is for individual purposes and it's something that we are actually passionate about and want to do.
Thank you. Go ahead, please, Anika.
Going off Cheyenne, the reason, like as she was saying, but why we started it is because as we've progressed into high school, we found that uh, wanting to learn has decreased. And when we were younger, I was like so curious, I wanted to know everything, but now it's more I learn because I have to, not because I want to, but there is still a want. It's just more that if I want to, I'm wasting time because, I could be doing schoolwork. But I think enabling students to want to learn and to find their passion is really important because in schooling, I feel a lot of students, they choose their career pathway based on their parents' expectations, their societal expectations, or their teachers or peers, whatever, but not what they actually want to do. And at the end of the day, it's your life. You're going to be doing this career for the rest of your life. So you should be doing what you want to do. And Pathway to Passion can foster an environment where children get to learn what they're interested in. They don't have to stick to it because it's from start of school to end of school, and it can enable them to be in year 12 and know what they want to do and go into the rest of their life, really starting their life doing something that they really want to do.
Thank you. Ari?
My project was pretty similar to Anika and Cheyenne's in the way that mine was passion based, because I feel like a lot of students don't want to learn school because they are forced to learn about certain things. You might pick a subject, but it's not covering the exact topic that you want to do. So I, for my project, I basically modeled assignments, because usually it's like you have to make an essay or whatever, and they move so quickly and you're forced to do certain topics. But I redesigned them to be more folio based, similar to we do AIF, which is a SACE compulsory subject in South Australia, which is basically a passion project where you get to pick whatever you want and it's really long, or similar to a design folio. And so in these assignments, the students can be more broad about what they want to do and pick what they want to study exactly. And it goes for a longer period of time. So by the end of the time, it doesn't even matter what grade they get because they've put so much work into it, so much love and passion, and they've actually learned from it that it's more effective and more efficient.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Michael, Sam, 30 seconds of something that stood out in terms of what the students did. Maybe from some of the Chinese students who are not present here, whose work sort of inspired you or just, clicked.
Look, I'll jump in first. I found, remember I was saying at the beginning where my class, it happened over a whole week, and I'm putting off the fact that I think by about day 3, I was chewing my nails a bit, getting a bit worried about where they were going to go and what they were going to choose. But day 3 was the visit to Universal Studios, and it was all framed in such a way that it was going to be like a learning, thoughtful experience. And when those kids came back from the studios, they weren't all sort of tired and like, yay, that was fun, now boring, back to work. They had all been in a place that was so heavily kind of constructed and considered that they then turned around and applied that to all of their projects, which were sort of things like that they were very heavily using AI for to help them sort of construct and build and design. It was not staying in the classroom, it was moving outside. No, you don't have to go to Universal Studios for each class, but that kind of I guess that challenge is what I think the students also talking about as well. That sort of that idea that yes, you can learn anywhere. Let's go. Let's get engaged. What do you think, Michael?
I think what I'd like to add, just whenever we go through and do our work at USC with the students in our subject together, or what we did over in China this year and last year, actually, when the students are working on something that they are passionate about, the amount of detail and thought and creativity goes well beyond anything that we sort of put down on our task sheet when we're asking you to do something. It's always way beyond, and what comes back is always something which is probably at least double the volume of what the task sheet asks for, because the students are passionate about it and they just want to go through and make the most of going through and solving that problem, or sharing their creativity, or offering their solution, which could be something which would always work. Actually, if we had the money to do all of these things, we could go through and make it work. So I think that going through and encouraging their creativity, and having a passion for learning, and the pathway to passion kind of stuff, and the way of going through that Ari's describing, where we have these folios, it means you'll always get something back as a teacher to assess, which is way greater than what you would have ever been able to ask for. And I think the outcome for the students is that they get to indulge in their creativity and their knowledge and their passion for learning, which I think is the ultimate result that we want.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. As you realize, time just really flies when you guys did such a superb and wonderful job. We did not even get to ask some more detailed questions. Just for those who are listening to this, we might be running camps like this, in the US, in Europe, in Australia, in different parts. And for the last about 10 years, I've been working with schools in different ways to formulate this kind of experiments. But Michael, Sam, Ari, and Shayanne, and Anika, you guys did a wonderful job representing the camp. And thanks, host, for all the great questions. Now, next episode will be host reflection. I'm sure we'll be thinking and talking a lot about the various episodes we've been discussing. Over the last several weeks. And thank you, and see you next week.